November 9th. Call the meeting order, the special meeting of the Canton Board of Education for November 9th at 7 p.m. And tonight, Mary Broderick, the CAVE consultant, will be providing us with her feedback on the survey that we've had. And I don't want to steal any of her thunder, but I did do an article today for the Valley Press. So apparently we did. Do all the board members, by the way, have this? If not, I know Claudia made copies. You guys good? Okay. Okay. So tonight we'll go over the profile and the information that came back. Then we'll go into executive session to talk about next steps. And hopefully everybody will be home early.
Should be on, right? I see that she joined as a participant. I'm going to add, put her to panelist.
Okay.
Try to. There we go. She should be able to.
Hello, Mary.
Hi there.
Hi, Mary. How are you?
Great, thank you. How are you?
Great. Thank you for joining tonight. We appreciate all the work that went into this.
Well, thank you. They're all like mini dissertations, I feel like. But I have to say that your community definitely wins the prize for the highest level of participation of any I have done so far. So getting
that's so interesting to us because it seemed low, like you and I talked about maybe extending, and so thank you.
No, I mean, even much larger communities, you rarely get far over 200. So to come in with 325 participants is pretty noteworthy, especially a small community. So congratulations on that.
So we called our meeting to order. Tonight we have Joe Scheidler with us. In case you can't see, Joe Scheidler's with us, Russell Bush, Felicia Jordan, Erica Hayes, Kim Sullivan, and Peggy Steinway. We're missing a couple board members, but we have a core group here and enough for a quorum, but there would be no votes tonight anyway. But anyway, so we thought we would tonight we would review with you in public session the leadership profile.
Right.
Then would you be able to stay a little bit longer for in the executive session for a few questions?
A little bit longer, depends on, sure. I mean, I think we could probably, yes, yes.
Okay. We'll move it right along. So,
okay, that's
okay,
great.
so with that said, if you want to dig in, and then what we'll do is we'll break for public forum after we hear a little bit about the leadership profile, see if there's any questions both online or in the audience, and then we'll go into executive session.
Okay, sounds great. Sounds great. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll just run through the profile. And if you find I'm just going with too much detail, by all means, stop me and we can, I can speed it up a little bit, but especially for those who may not have had a chance to read it yet, I am not able to share my screen. I thought joining, am I able to share my screen? Can somebody make me a co-host somehow? Or does everybody have a copy of it and I'll just go ahead and talk through it? Uh-oh, we seem to have frozen. Can you hear me? Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I somehow got frozen. Is it possible for me to be made co-host?
You're trying to do that.
Oh, I see. I am now co-host. That's great. So I just thought it would be helpful for you to sort of see where I am as I'm reading through it. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but again, 325 was a really high participation rate. You'd see that 52% of those were parents. Almost 14% aren't parents, but are community members. You did have some students, which is great, some administrators, 16% were teachers, and 8.5% were support staff, some of you, a couple of town officials, and some business leaders. So this 364 figure obviously is higher than the 325, but that's because people identified with a couple of groups. So the first thing we asked about was strengths of Canton, both the community and the schools. I have to say the responses in this area were tighter than I usually see. You had a lot of agreement around these strengths. You had 170 people, definitely the majority of your participants, citing your staff, and citing your teachers as expert and dedicated and passionate, and both the faculty and the support staff. Several mentioned the commitment to educating the whole child and how important that is, and really knowing students. Really, I mean, that's something that really stood out to me, as how well your faculty do in connecting with students and really knowing them deeply. 32 talked about the administrators as a strength, noting that they are open to hearing the different perspectives of people within the system and working through conflicts. They tend to be welcoming and accessible, and they give clear direction to the district, and they communicate effectively and foster a collaborative culture that's really focused on what they ought to be focused on. You had 153 who talked about some aspect of the program, and most, well, 89 of those responses were talking about the overall program, the overall curriculum, described as strong. Now, I put things in quotes when I feel like they do speak to the volume of responses. So when you see me using quotes, it's because those are things that kind of carried the herd of information. Student-centered and rigorous with high academic standards. The holistic approach, the innovative culture, and positive school climate were mentioned. Now, 25 participants talked about a specific area of strength. And the one that got the most mentions there with 14 was music. And some specified that it was K-12 and others didn't specify, but just said music was really strong. And then 11 talked about the high quality extracurricular opportunities, and that included some sports. The next highest, is this pace okay for everybody?
Excellent.
Okay. Community was the next highest strength, the next most cited, with 86 people talking about the schools themselves, the community within the schools, and the broader town. So it was hard to distinguish when they said community, which they were referring to, but they talked about the close-knit family atmosphere and being small but mighty, and that the size, which comes up in the next part, also allows that sense of community. So there were 63 people who talked about the size being a great strength, and that smaller schools meant that connection that seems to be so important to the whole community. Having students well known, both between students and with staff, and getting that individualized attention that comes from being a small community. And then 21 of those 63 mentioned class size in particular. 26 identified students as the greatest strength, with their desire to succeed and their diversity of thought, and their ability to succeed. And then 22 talked about parents being a great strength, with their involvement and their support and engagement, and partnership with the schools. 10 mentioned facilities and adequate resources to provide the program. And then 10 mentioned a sense of safety. Okay, so that's it for strengths. And we'll go on to challenges. Now, again, you will find that some areas are mentioned in both both places because people have different perspectives, and sometimes your greatest strength is also your greatest challenge. And I think the fact that program rose to the top was more about participants saying it's going to be really important for this new leader to make sure we don't lose ground, and indeed that we continue to maintain and focus on high academic standards and improve.
Mary, can I interject something as you go through this? I just want to remind the board that at some point, probably this summer, we're going to begin a strategic plan finally. It's well overdue by a couple of years. A lot of the input that you're going to get here and the challenges and the positives are going to play well. We may not even have to do a survey. We might be able to work from this document to get some of the real strategic direction that we need to go in off of this. So I just want to, as you read through this, I'd like you to think in that thought process a little bit. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So again, broadly, just wanting to make sure that there is continued focus on high quality programming. Some were asking for improvement in district ranking and making sure that you continue to balance the needs of all the different stakeholders, that you continue to offer the robust curriculum and extracurricular opportunities for students. And then there were some specific areas that Drew mentioned. There were 14 out of the 96 who said that there are challenges with curriculum, that it needs to be more innovative and relevant. So you did hear some people saying that its innovation was a strength, but obviously not everybody totally agrees with that. 11 of the 96 talked about special ed as a challenge, and noted increases in the identification of students and corollary higher spending rates, and then the need to ensure that there's accessibility across the district. Now we're getting into lower numbers. We had 9 who talked about technology as a challenge, and they wanted greater proficiency in the tech as the tech industry is advancing and evolving, and needing educators to have the resources to keep up with that. And then 8 talked about the lingering effects of COVID. That's sort of a line through a lot of this. Obviously, the context for the gathering of this information is moving out of COVID, we hope, but it definitely appears in different ways in this study. And again, staffing was viewed as a great strength, but there were 83 people who identified some issue with staff. And for the most part, it's like every single school district in Connecticut, staff are, especially coming out of COVID, are really feeling the challenges of the time. You know that they've been stretched to the limit, and there are shortages in hiring, and that has also meant extra stress on the people who are filling in when people are out and that kind of thing. Needing to offer competitive compensation came up for a number of people, especially for paras. It says for teachers and paras, and I would say we heard paras loud and clear in this study. Need to focus on professional development. I think people are feeling that it's time to refocus attention on their staff development so that they can meet the changing and significant needs of students. And morale, as I'm sure is no surprise to you, has been affected by the many continuing challenges of COVID. So the leader's going to need to continue to devote attention to ensuring that the culture and environment is enough to really attract great people to work there, and to ensure that people mentioned wanting to make sure that the administrative team is in a position to really connect well with the broader community. There were 51 people, and I actually put social and emotional health right under behavior, even though the numbers weren't quite as high. And in general, you'll notice that these are in descending order of most mentioned. But behavior and social and emotional and mental health just went so much together that I had them next to one another here. So 51 said that behavioral and discipline issues are going to be major challenges for a new leader. 15 specifically mentioned bullying, both in school and online. And then there are different, this is another thing I see in a variety of places, but because discipline by nature needs to be different if a student's individualized education program specifies that, there are different expectations for behavior between the general population and those students. So that inconsistency can rub people, and I think that's part of what we're seeing here. And so I think we've covered all of that. 40 talked about social, emotional, and mental health issues. Now, we know that those were issues with our youth before the pandemic, but across the board, we're seeing a ratcheting up in concern about students and staff mental health. I think there's great appreciation that the district has made significant efforts to address those issues, but that the growing need has just been overwhelming. Funding and facilities and resources were mentioned as a strength, but there were 45 participants who think that it's going to be a challenge to garner enough resources to address student need and continue to offer the robust program that you have been offering. The next, we get into some of the what I saw as pretty stark political camps in Canton, with 43 participants identified diversity, equity, and inclusion and the need to address the changing needs of students. And then there were 40 who reflected or offered comments about the broad political divide that the new leader will be confronted with, and the varied political influences on students and parents and schools. 20 talked about political indoctrination, and 10 talked specifically about politically divided parents and the increasing political divide. One talked, I mean, again, this is just one person's quote, that the leader will face standing up to those who might grandstand politically with the board, and the need to navigate the current political climate and ensure students continue to be allowed to explore. So that's an area where there was, again, you're not at all by any means alone in this. This is something that we're seeing across the state and across the nation. And the next challenge was a big drop to 10, saying that there are going to be space and facilities needs. I'm sorry, there were 10 who said it was a strength. There are 16 who cite this as a challenge. Speaking of an aging infrastructure and facilities in need of upgrades. And again, 22 found that parents were a strength, but as far as challenges go, there were 14 who said that parents can be a significant challenge. And I think that political divide that was just described is part of that concern about parents. And finally, there were 13 who talked about your growing enrollment as a challenge and fear of losing the community feel of a small district. So that's it for strengths and challenges. And now we'll move into what people say that they're looking for in a new leader. This might be a little bit hard to absorb, but people were asked for their top 5, to rank their top 5 choices in this from this list of desired expertise in a new superintendent. And what you'll see is here in these first 2 columns are people's first choices, what they listed as number 1. And then the final 2 columns here are and the collection of people's top 3 choices. So you'll see that first and foremost, building trusting relationships with students, staff, and community was cited by 90 people as their first choice, and that's 28% of the participants in the survey. And next came communicates and collaborates effectively in schools and community with 78 or 24%. And a big drop then to the next 41 people said that they wanted somebody who is knowledgeable. I mean, that their top priority would be somebody who's knowledgeable about educational trends. If you look at the top 3 choices, they're all still in the top ranking, but now first and foremost is communicates and collaborates effectively, and then builds trusting relationships, and then knowledgeable. Again, a big drop here. And shares district-wide vision of excellence isn't too far behind there. So in terms of the qualities of a superintendent, using the same process, number 1 was keeping people's first choice, keep students' growth and well-being the primary focus. You had 24% or 77 participants select that one as their first choice. 73 said they want somebody trustworthy, honest, and respectful, or 23%. And then 19% said accessible, approachable, and visible in schools and community. And again, there's a big drop to the next levels. And those are, you see it tightens up a little bit for the top 2 choices here, but they remain the top 2 choices. And then approachable, accessible, and community. Invisible is in 3rd place. So those are all really important, and all of these qualities and characteristics are really important in leadership, but these speak to your needs specifically right now. And what I did then was took comments from the open-ended part of the survey and kind of placed them where they seem to belong under these areas. So recognizing the importance of relationships, it's just so critically important that relationships are number 1. And the leader devoted to supporting the growth of students teach. Everybody needs to feel like the leader cares about their growth, both students, the teachers, and staff. And somebody who's really attuned to what's going on in the class and the schools and aware of all of the variety of issues that are affecting students and their performance and their mental health and their safety. Staff really need to feel appreciated these days, and I'm sure you're all very much aware of that. The stresses on them have been so enormous. They want to know that there's a fair hiring practice, that people are able to earn livable wages. The successful superintendent is going to show that that individual really appreciates them and cares about their growth and makes decisions that are embedded in empathy and compassion, supports their grassroots ideas, and helps them to teachers expand their horizons and contribute to the strengths of the school system. They want somebody who's open and compassionate and fair and is able to garner the trust of students, staff, and the community. This person needs to be an expert listener, which obviously is the first rule of a good communicator. Somebody, again, who's caring and humble and invites a variety of perspectives and shares ideas and follows up on promises. Somebody who's able to collaborate well with staff and loves to hear their professional opinions. Somebody who's you're definitely going to need somebody who's politically aware and yet not political, but diplomatic. Able to bridge the existing divides, the political divides that were very clear in gathering these data. Who's able to listen to parents and promote their involvement, and simultaneously give staff the impression that the staff are backed up as well, but ensure that the family experiences, all families experience a sense of belonging in the Canton Public Schools, and somebody who's a good partner with other boards across town as well. This person needs to be knowledgeable about educational trends and best practices and how to foster innovation. See the big picture, ensuring students are healthy and energized to learn and able to energize teachers to teach. Really savvy about proven educational trends and innovations, including international trends. Really informed on current curriculum, focused on the whole child, supporting the arts and other forms of student learning and expression. Somebody who has significant experience as a classroom teacher. That was really important to a number of your participants, with also, and this is a lot, but a deep understanding of special education and of mental, behavioral, and social and emotional health. And somebody also who understands social media and its impact on students and staff and families. Somebody who will think and problem solve creatively and openly and help the community navigate the divides and come together behind a common sense of direction. You want somebody who understands the district's finances and is able to communicate the district needs very effectively to the community and able to support the improvements that the plant is going to need. This person is going to keep students as the primary focus of their decision-making, somebody who cares about learning and understanding what each child needs to succeed. Somebody who can address student behaviors, who cares about supporting the social and emotional needs of both students and staff, and it is able to encourage and enforce consistent discipline and foster a safe educational environment. So this leader also needs to focus on, mention the growth of staff, helping principals and other administrators to improve and expecting them to meet high quality standards. So raising the bar for everybody, hire effective teachers. Obviously you want somebody trustworthy, honest, and respectful, somebody who's realistic and transparent and guided by your policies and protocols. I think we've mentioned the word humble a couple of times, but somebody who's humble and kind and deeply involved in the community, and highly visible in schools. So somebody who really gets energized by being around students. This person needs to have a great personality and sense of humor and be able to relate really well with students and adults. And finally, your participants say you're looking for a strong leader with a positive outlook, somebody who's intelligent and compassionate and uses great judgment and able to make confident decisions. Somebody who has a vision and the capability to improve the performance of the schools, somebody who's resilient, has a strong backbone, has a lot of common sense and courage. And finally, you have a desire to have somebody who commits to Canton for the long term. So that, I will stop the sharing. That is the detail of your.
So has God actually created a person
Yes.
like this? They're just, I mean, what do we got here? I mean, everybody that might be like that is dead and is heaven, so.
Well, you know, this document can also really help whoever ends up taking the role be reminded of what it is that's going to be successful there. So, I mean, this is a moment in time, but probably some of these concepts are good to reflect on when you're in the role and thinking about what this community really needs or what the community thinks it needs, and tailoring behavior to those needs. So.
Okay. All right, why don't we do this? Why don't we open up for public forum and then we'll go to the board for questions? How's that sound? Or do you want to do it in reverse? Yeah. Okay. So in public forum, certainly Nora, please.
My name is Nora Mokarski, for those of you that don't know me, and this is public comment. I'm not a resident of Canton, so I'm here in my capacity as an EAC executive member. I'm the PR&R person, which is the person that's essentially a contract interpreter looking at the teacher's contract. They call it professional rights and responsibilities. It's a grievance chair. But I'm here in the stead of Chris Amini, who couldn't be here. So The reason why I'm here, though, is because it's relative to your agenda tonight, which is to select a superintendent, and the EAC asks that in your process of considering who should be on your board or group to decide and make those decisions, that the teachers, the certified teacher members, be a part of that conversation. We know that the rubber meets the road with the student and teacher relationship in the classroom. And we think it's very important that teachers be asked or called to serve in some capacity in the process of selecting a superintendent. We're the ones who carry out the vision. We're the ones who carry out, as you were mentioning, a strategic plan. So I think that would be, in our view, imperative that teachers be a part of the equation in some form of fashion. And so I just wanted to voice that on behalf of the EAC for this evening. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Nora. Andrew, do you want to mention?
Yeah, sure. I thought we were gonna be speaking at the beginning, when for the protocol of the meeting.
We wanted you to hear the,
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I heard you say earlier,
state your name and your.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, Andrew Lavery, for Financial Rep.
Thank you.
I heard you say earlier that the board's gonna go into executive session shortly, probably pretty soon. But I want to say public comments. I did fill out the survey, but one thing I forgot to include in the survey, and I wanted to come tonight to just to throw that little tidbit in, is that I didn't want the board to go into executive session at any point to discuss the hiring of a new superintendent. I don't understand why any part of this process needs to be secret. My understanding is executive session, I can't be in the room, or any member of the public can't be in the room. As far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, any minutes kept of the executive session won't be public as well, that's my understanding. So I don't understand why any part of this hiring process needs to be in private. This is a superintendent for the town. We all pay taxes here. Some of us have kids in school, some of us are have kids in school, no longer do. They get out. Nothing should be in private. It should all be public. Even the resumes of the prospective superintendents that we receive, the resumes that we get, even make those public. You can blur out the public information, the private information such as address, phone number and such. But even those resumes should be made public, so that way everyone can see what the qualifications are of all the applicants, knowing that we'll only choose one, but really keep everything transparent and give everyone an opportunity to look and see what you all are doing in this process. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for those comments. No one else in the room, so we'll open it up to online.
Sure, let me get this little list so you can see. If you're attending online tonight and you'd like to make a public comment, you can go ahead and use the raise hand feature of Zoom and I will call on you by your Zoom name. You can find the raise hand feature on the bottom of your screen.
No questions?
No raised hand. though.
Okay, well, thank you then. I'll close out the public forum and go to the board now. Peggy, any questions about the profile? Anything? I mean, it was pretty thorough, a
Yeah.
lot in there. It's nothing we can really argue with.
No. I think your comment of, sort of like the perfect person or something, so, with all the different things. No, I think it sounds pretty good, actually.
Thank you. Kim?
No, other than I hope all board members are going to read through everything if they're not here and going to read the other documents that are sent. And it's important that, everybody.
I agree. I am grateful that the air conditioning just came on. Erica?
I don't think I have any questions for now.
Felicia?
I'm back in.
I am too.
No questions.
Joe?
Just one, did anything jump out as particularly unusual or unexpected that maybe would be unique to this town, as you've done many of these searches, so. And anything that,
I think I was most struck by the political divide. I mean, have seen that in a lot of places, but there was more expression of that through the survey responses than I have seen. We know it exists across this country and certainly across this state, but I haven't heard it quite as Honestly, and yeah, and deeply felt as in Canton. But otherwise, I also think you had greater unity about sense of both strengths and challenges than usual. And I do think the participation speaks to a commitment to the schools and desire to weigh in on what you're looking for. So I think I actually felt really good about the Canton Public Schools and just think it's really important that the new leader have eyes wide open about the political divides and the effort that he or she will need to make to try to bridge those divides. I think the staff really needs that because I think staff are feeling pretty beaten up.
Thank you for those comments. Okay, any other questions? Okay, we are going to move into executive session, but I'll just mention one thing about executive session. One of the reasons why we go into executive session is because we will be talking about certain individuals that have asked for confidentiality because we could be upsetting a career if they know, if their school district knows that we're talking about them or how that works. That's just one part of why. And the state allows us under personnel matters to be able to do that. But I certainly, this board will try to be as transparent and open as possible because I think that's important too. So I appreciate your comment. So with that, I will say that we're going to move into executive session. I need a motion for that, and it'll be just the Board of Education at this point. So Felicia and or Peggy. Okay. So we will move into executive session at 8:40. Any further discussion on that? First and second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And we're inviting Mary. I'm sorry. We're inviting Mary Broderick, which will be quick for you because I know you have some meetings, just in case.
Thank you.